For many of us, Prince's songs scored entire chapters of our lives. For Mayte Garcia, they scored her whole life. She was his wife, muse, and closest companion. At 51, Mayte isn't simply reminiscing, she's setting the record straight. She once lived inside a world of music, mystery, and magic. But out of the spotlight, the romance bent under pressure until it finally broke. Fans saw the dazzling photos, the chemistry, the concerts. They rarely saw the grief that ultimately led her to leave a man the world considered untouchable. So why did Mayte end her marriage to Prince? And what truths has she held back until now? Stay with us. This is where the fairy tale comes apart. Prince Rogers Nelson wasn't merely born. He arrived. From his first stage steps, it was obvious this kid from Minneapolis was bound to reshape popular music. The high-heeled boots, the ruffled suits, yes. But it was the fearlessness that changed everything. He came from a musical home. His father at the piano, his mother a jazz singer, and by 7 he'd already composed a song. Piano, guitar, drums. He taught himself because music wasn't just joy. It was armor. His childhood was turbulent. His parents split when he was 10, his mother remarried, and his stepfather relationship was tense. He struggled with epileptic seizures, classmates sometimes cruel, and decided the only way to beat the noise was to be louder than it. He left his father's house at 10 and stayed with neighbors, the Andersons. Their son, Andre Simon, became his brother in art. Together they formed Grand Central, played local gigs, and dreamed beyond city limits. Teenage Prince spent hours in a local DJ's basement studio, transcribing James Brown and Aretha Franklin, studying sound like scripture, then creating his own. By 16, he left school and carved a path. The Minneapolis sound, funk, rock, soul, synth was born. At 18, he was a session guitarist. At 19, he signed with Warner Brothers Records. His debut for You, 1978, didn't floor critics, but he was just getting started. The live shows, erotic, theatrical, risky, everything pop was missing. Then the 80s detonated. 1999 made him an MTV powerhouse. Purple Rain, album and film, turned into a phenomenon. 24 straight weeks at #1 on Billboard, and 25 million copies sold worldwide. Overnight, he wasn't just a star, he was an icon. Behind the curtain, he ran things with military intensity. Engineer Susan Rogers called the schedule punishing, endless calls, no wiggle room. Carmen Electra recalled him vanishing into his home studio while others slept. Journalist Alan Light saw it up close. 3-hour sound checks, 2-hour concerts, then after parties until dawn. The output felt superhuman. Control also meant independence. He clashed with Warner over ownership, changed his name in 1993 to an unpronounceable symbol, and let the world say the artist formerly known as Prince. It wasn't a stunt. It was a line in the sand, you don't own me. Even as spotlights shifted later on, he never slowed. In 2010, Time named him among the 100 most influential people. Even after his death in 2016, his shadow is long. The boy who once felt unwanted built a throne and made the world bend to his sound. Genius wasn't the only gravity around him. Women were drawn to Prince, and he didn't hide his affection in return. Though he married twice, the relationships between were unforgettable. Madonna, Sheila E., Carmen Electra, Kim Basinger, a roll call of beauty, talent, and power. Kim Basinger and Prince ignited in the late 80s. The spark spilled into studio work. Rumors swirled that elements of the Batman-era sessions blurred the line between music and intimacy. Her family worried about his influence. Stories say they even tried to extract her from Paisley Park while he was away. Years later, Kim called it a special time. She never limited herself, and with Prince, she followed the connection. He didn't just date, he created. He discovered Tara Lee Patrick, reimagined her as Carmen Electra, and launched her into the spotlight. She later said she'd always love him. He'd given her more than a name. He'd given her belief. Apollonia, of Purple Rain, became forever linked to his myth. On-screen lovers, off-screen bond that blurred lines. Sherilyn Fenn, Twin Peaks, called him life-changing. Many believe the most beautiful girl in the world was inspired by Vanessa Marcil, who starred in the video long assumed to be the muse, though never confirmed, and Vanity-born Denise Matthews fronted Vanity 6, a group he created. Their chemistry was explosive, passion fused with chaos. Addiction took its toll. The romance unraveled. Vanity died in 2016 of renal failure, just months before Prince. Through it all, Sheila E. stood out, the drummer who matched his pulse on stage and remained a lifelong friend. When he died, she said the word loss took on new meaning. Before fame noticed her, Mayte Garcia set her aim. At 9, she told her mother she would someday marry Luis Miguel or Prince. Her mother laughed it off. Mayte wasn't joking. She didn't marry Luis Miguel. Fate handed her the other name. Mayte danced from a grade school, ballet, belly dance, performing at banquets and community shows. At 16, her mother took a videotape of Mayte performing to a Prince concert. By a stroke of luck, a dancer brought it backstage. Minutes later, "Prince would like to meet you." He complimented her tape, double-checked she was really 16, and asked for her number. The exchange was under a minute, but for her, time stopped. That night, he invited her to his hotel room to watch more of her dance tapes. He was 32, she was 16. No romance, only letters and long phone calls followed. In her memoir, Mayte wrote that there was no relationship then. Prince never denied there were fleeting thoughts, but he refused to cross that line. After she finished high school, everything changed. He made her a backup dancer and became her legal guardian. At 18, she moved into Paisley Park. Though Prince still dated, it was Mayte who stayed up in his room until dawn, talking, laughing, closing the distance between mentor and partner. By 19, the line vanished. He told her, "I think it's time," and sent her for birth control. She wrote the moment in her journal, Feb 9, 1993, not a virgin. She doodled a winking smiley and added 3 words, "Patience pays off." On February 14, 1996, Valentine's Day, she became Mrs. Prince at 22. To the world, it looked like destiny fulfilled. But fairy tales rarely survive real life. By 2000, the marriage had collapsed. Prince married Manuela Testolini in 2001. That marriage ended 5 years later. For Mayte, the young fan who spoke her future into being, the dream she won became the heartbreak that defined her story. Prince didn't just make music, he made headlines. He courted controversy as hard as he courted innovation. His battle with Warner Brothers over masters led to the 1993 name change to a symbol, and the word slave written on his face during performances. What looked bizarre to some reads now as early artists' rights warfare. He signaled his stance as early as 1981 with the album Controversy, tracks like Sexuality, Do Me, Baby, and Jack You Off. In 1986, he broke up the revolution, letting go of Wendy and Lisa after credit disputes. Fans were stunned. But creative control was non-negotiable. Darling Nikki, from Purple Rain, sparked outrage when Tipper Gore heard her daughter listening. The uproar birthed the Parents Music Resource Center and those now familiar parental advisory stickers. He also sparred with other artists. When Sinead O'Connor scored a #1 with Nothing Compares to You, reports said he confronted her about language. Her reply was unprintable and pure Sinead. In 2001, he publicly embraced being a Jehovah's Witness. Albums like The Rainbow Children reflected the shift. Some fans embraced it, others bristled when racy lyrics gave way to scripture on stage. Then came the Internet era. In 2007, fan sites formed Prince Fans United after crackdowns on unauthorized images. In 2008, he took aim at YouTube, eBay, and the Pirate Bay for infringement. He even pulled his Creep cover from Coachella until Radiohead reminded everyone it was their song. In 2010, he said, "The Internet was completely over," and pulled much of his catalog from streaming. Even live, he stirred debate. The 2007 Super Bowl silhouette guitar moment raised eyebrows. The 2004 Grammys opener with Beyoncé had some accusing him of stealing the spotlight. Others said it was simply Prince being Prince. There were personal critiques, too. He mentored many women, Vanity, Apollonia, Sheila E., Mayte Garcia, and some later called him controlling, shaping sound, image, and path. Mayte's memoir described a love both powerful and painfully complex, especially after the loss that shattered them. Under the purple lights, Prince's body was paying a heavy price. A Purple Rain tour stunt, a bathtub lowered from 10 feet, snapped during rehearsal. He fell hard. Later, a stage slip injured his knee. He kept touring, but the hip, the leg, the back, none of it truly healed. He'd long prided himself on being clean. In the early days, while others partied, he chose cake over cocaine and scolded friends for showing up high. But relentless pain wears anyone down. By the late 1980s, ecstasy and hallucinogens brushed the edges of his world. He recorded the Black Album, then abruptly pulled it. Rumors pinned the decision on a bad trip, replacing it with Lovesexy. The pivot hurt the rollout. He distrusted doctors and dreaded surgery, fearing cancellations, and lost control. Pills began as a way to function, another rehearsal, another show, another all-nighter, until functioning required them. By the early 1990s, people whispered about rehab and unexplained absences. For an artist who lived in studios, even a brief disappearance felt like a confession. By the 2000s, the injuries compounded. He looked smaller, more fragile. On stage, he was still electric. Off stage, he was fading. In 2016, he died at 57 from an accidental fentanyl overdose. For many, the shock was doubled by the irony. The man who once ejected people for using drugs was undone by painkillers, not to chase a high, but to silence pain. Reports said he weighed just over 100 pounds. Pills were found throughout his home. The titan who micromanaged every note lost a private human battle to pain. When Prince and Mayte married on Valentine's Day, 1996, it looked like a dream carved in stone. He gifted her a 7,500 square foot Spain mansion with a studio and full salon. They lived fast, shopping Melrose from a limo. Guerrilla style, he joked, grabbing what they liked without glancing at tags. It wasn't only material whirl. He believed they'd known each other in another life. In 1996 with Oprah, he spoke of their bond as ancient. She felt like a sister, or part of him from another existence, souls that had met in Egypt, fate tying them together. Oprah called it weird, Prince called it truth. He set that love to melody, the most beautiful girl in the world. Then real life cut in. 2 months after the wedding, Mayte was pregnant. Doctors warned of complications and urged precautions. Prince, wary of medical intervention, chose faith. In October 1996, their son Amir was born with Pfeiffer syndrome type 2. After 6 days and multiple efforts to save him, he died. Mayte never recovered from the loss. She believed Prince didn't either. Weeks later, they sat with Oprah and put on brave faces. Prince dodged the hardest questions, insisting their family existed and they'd have more children. Privately, everything was fracturing. Mayte became pregnant again, only to suffer a miscarriage. 2 back-to-back losses left wounds nothing could heal. Mayte later believed the tragedies pushed them apart, that Prince carried the grief like a silent verdict, as if their inability to have children together meant the bond wasn't meant to last. His spiritual turn deepened the divide. He fully embraced life as a Jehovah's Witness. Mayte respected his faith, but couldn't follow that path. What began as shared destiny turned into separate searches for meaning. In 1998, Prince shocked her and everyone by announcing at a press conference his intent to annul the marriage. She was blindsided. She had trusted his talk of ancient love. Instead, she was left with memories and worldwide hits that felt like private letters the world still sings. Life after Prince was hard. Dating musicians felt impossible. How do you follow Prince? She was briefly engaged to Tommy Lee, but nothing fit. Then 2016 shattered her again. Prince was gone, 57, accidental fentanyl overdose. The man who swore off drugs succumbed to the most common trap, pain managed in secret. Mayte had buried their child. Now she buried the man she called Destiny. She said she loved him then, loves him now, and always will, and that in her heart he was finally reunited with their baby. Their story wasn't a fantasy. It was human. Passion and artistry, yes, but also grief, faith, and fractures that destiny couldn't mend. Even love that feels written in the stars can collapse under real-world weight. And when it did, we saw how human an untouchable icon truly was.